program is to empower you to break out of your limiting principles, values, and beliefs to bring you into your desired divine destiny. I'm Minister Vicky, your co-host. Our desire is to help you fulfill your destiny and reach your goals by providing you with tools and techniques to facilitate your spiritual and emotional healing. Now let's join our host, the Restoration Doctor, Dr. D.L. Waters.
We thank you for being with us.
Welcome.
Blog Talk Radio today. I've spent the last few moments actually seeking to get in with the pen and everything, just seeking to be here. Ran an errand earlier today and just really getting back, rushing into the studio here in order to do the program. But I'm excited about the program for this day. We are looking at a sermon that was done by Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard, those of you who are familiar with this mystic, an individual who was just someone who approached life in a particular kind of way. I'll read a little bit of the bio that I have from him or regarding him, and it mentions that Neville Goddard was among the last century's most articulate and charismatic purveyors of the philosophy generally called New Thought. He wrote 10 books under the solitary pen name Neville, and was a popular speaker on metaphysical themes from the late 1930s until his death in 1972. Possessed of a self-educated and uncommonly sharp intellect, Neville captured the sheer logic of creative mind principles as perhaps no other figure of his era. Neville's way of thought is extolled today by Major League pitcher Barry Zito, and some say it influenced the ideas of Carlos Castaneda, Aldous Huxley, and others. And yet little is known about this teacher who exerted so unusual pull on the American spiritual scene of the mid-century. And so that's a little about Neville Goddard. Individuals who have read him, I've become a very big fan of Neville Goddard myself as I look at the way that he approaches life, how he presents it, and the whole aspect really of arriving at the point where you understand how to bring forth your life. I just like his approach. I like his approach. I believe that he is correct. This particular presentation is entitled "Consciousness is the Only Reality." To you, by the virtue of the fact that you are here, we're going to believe again that Spirit has brought you forth into this particular moment and that you are here by divine appointment. You are here by divine appointment. So this particular item, as we look at it, I'm going to basically read it as it is written. And then there may be some points at which I will talk about it or say something about it, but I basically want to read it as it is written here as opposed to preaching it or even in a certain kind of way teaching it, but I want to read it as we have it here. The sermon is entitled, the lesson is entitled, "Consciousness is the Only Reality." Consciousness is the only reality, and is entitled Lesson 1. There's a series that I have that are Lessons 1 through 5, and it is possible that we'll have all of those available to you so that you can listen to them. And I ask that if you're unfamiliar with Neville Goddard, just listen with an open mind. Just listen with an open mind. Indeed, in order to process something into you or bring it into you for you to consider it, you have to take it into your mind, take it into your conscious thought, really is the way to bring it in. But bring it into your mind, either your conscious or your subconscious mind. So many times individuals are actually functioning on a subconscious level. But what we're asking you to do is actually take it in, to consider it with an open mind. And this is entitled, "Consciousness is the Only Reality." And Neville begins, he says, "This is going to be a very practical course. Therefore, I hope that everyone in this class has a very clear picture of what he desires. For I am convinced that you can realize your desires by the techniques you will receive here this week in these 5 courses. So let's say that he was doing this and it was a set of courses, classes that he was going to do, seminar-like that he was going to do, and it was going to be done lessons 1 through 5 in a week. So an individual would listen to them day after day for a week. And so he mentions that one of the first items here is to have a clear picture of what you desire, a clear picture. This is so vital that you have a clear picture. We actually have a document that you could actually receive if you would email me at Dennis, DENNIS Dennis Waters, WATERS, the number 4, Dennis.Waters4 at Comcast.net. We actually have an item that we call Through the Gate that has been designated for this very purpose, so that an individual is actually able to write down what it is that they desire, so that you can be very clear on what it is that you desire. Write that down. And he mentions up front that an individual should be very clear of what he or she desires. That you may receive the full benefit of these instructions, let me state now that the Bible has no reference at all to any person who ever existed or to any event that ever occurred upon the earth. So this is his approach to the Bible. Again, when we consider the Bible in this day and time, it is vital that we understand that in order to just consider the Bible, no matter what part of the Bible, you actually have to take it in and then actually create the individual in your mind that is being talked about. And so what Neville was talking about is really the aspect that in order to apply the Bible, whatever the character is in the Bible that is being talked about, in order for it to benefit you, in order for it to benefit me, we must bring that individual into ourselves and actually see ourselves in that role, in that mindset, with that understanding, whatever it may be. It is the same thing, really, that when you're watching a good movie or whatever, you actually identify with one of the characters, or at least one of the characters in the movie itself. And so Neville is here talking about that in order to actually receive a full benefit of these instructions, he states that his approach to it is that the Bible has no reference at all to any person who ever existed or to any event that ever occurred upon earth. The ancient storytellers were, with his continuing with his item, the ancient storytellers were not writing history, but an allegorical picture lesson of certain basic principles which they clothed in the garb of history, and they adapted their stories to the limited capacities of a most uncritical and credulous people. Throughout the centuries, we have mistakenly taken personifications for persons, allegory for history, the vehicle that conveyed the instruction for the instruction, and the gross first sense for the ultimate sense intended. We sometimes talk of this, of receiving something in spirit. We must move into this realm of spirit. And in spirit, there's no time. There's no time. Past, present, and future. There's no time in the realm of spirit. And this is what Neville is talking about. It is always now. The difference, he continues, between the form of the Bible and its substance is as great as the difference between a grain of corn and the life germ within that grain. As our assimilative organs discriminate between food that can be built into our system and food that must be discarded, so do our awakened intuitive faculties discover beneath the allegory and parable the psychological life germ of the Bible. And feeding on this, we too cast off the form which conveyed the message. So he's given an illustration in regard to this. Again, this was a man who had a very astute mind. Let me say it in regard to that. His intuitive faculties were really, really working, and he's moving us into this aspect of the application of the Bible. The application of the Bible so that it is of beneficial benefit to us. It is of benefit to us. It is beneficial to you, to me. And so he says that beneath the story, there is something to be gleaned. Beneath the story, there is something to be gleaned. And to stop at the level of story will not be of great benefit. Jesus himself, the Christ, as he came forth, spoke parables and talked to individuals in parables, and then he spoke to his disciples in such a language that they could understand. And so some individuals actually just remain at the level of story, but we're talking to those individuals who are awakened in their intuitive faculties, and they are seeking to discover the psychological life germ of the Bible. What is its purpose for the day? It's not just history. I never would say it's not history at all. It has a message for this day. He says the argument continues. He says the argument against the historicity of the Bible is too lengthy. Consequently, it is not suitable for inclusion in this practical psychological interpretation of its stories. Therefore, I will waste no time in trying to convince you that the Bible is not an historical fact. Tonight I will take 4 stories and show you how the ancient storytellers intended that you and I should see in these stories. The ancient teachers attached psychological truths to phallic and solar allegories. They did not know as much of the physical structure of man as do modern scientists. Neither did they know as much about the heavens as do our own modern astronomers. But the little they did know, they used wisely, and they built phallic and solar frames to which they tied the great psychological truths that they had discovered. There's an item that I say that good theology is good psychology. Good psychology is good theology. And so the Bible has this intent of speaking to the mind and to the heart of an individual. It has that intent. And this is what Neville is saying is the purpose of the Bible. In the Old Testament, you will find much of the phallic, P-H-A-L-L-I-C, phallic worship. Because it is not helpful, I am not going to emphasize it. I shall only show you how to interpret it. Before we come to the first of the psychological dramas that you and I may use in a practical sense, let me state the 2 outstanding names of the Bible. The one you and I translate as God or Jehovah, and the one we call his Son, which we have as Jesus. The ancients spelled these names by using little symbols. The ancient tongue, called the Hebraic language, was not a tongue that you exploded with the breath. It was a mystical language, never uttered by man. Those who understood it as mathematicians understand symbols of higher mathematics. It is not something people use to convey thought as I now use the English language. They said that God's name was spelled Yod-He-Waw-He. I shall take these symbols and in our normal down-to-earth language explain them in this manner. The first letter, Yod, the Hebrew letter Yod, he translated it, transliterated J-O-D. Could also be, I believe, Y-O-D. Yod, Jod, J-O-D. Is the name God, in the name God, is a hand or a seed. Not just a hand, not just any hand, but the hand of the director. If there is one organ of man that discriminates and sets him apart from the entire world of creation, it is his hand. What we call a hand in the anthropoid ape is not a hand. It is used only for the purpose of conveying food to the mouth or to swing from branch to branch. Man's hand fashions. Man's hands mold. You cannot really express yourself without the hand. This is the builder's hand, the hand of the director. It directs and molds and builds within your world. The ancient storytellers called the first letter Yod, or Yod, the hand, or the absolute seed out of which the whole of creation will come. The second letter, Heth, H-E, they gave the symbol of a window. A window is an eye. The window is to the house what the eye is to the body. The third letter, Wow, they called a nail. A nail is used for the purpose of binding things together. The conjunction an in the Hebraic tongue is simply the third letter, or thou. If I want to say man and woman, I put the thou, V-A-U, in the middle. It binds them together. The fourth and last letter, Heth, is another window or eye. In this modern, down-to-earth language of ours, you can forget eyes and windows and hands and look at it in this manner. You are right where you are right now, seated, driving, standing up, whatever it may be. The first letter, Yod, is your I amness, your awareness. You are aware of being aware. That is the first letter. Out of this awareness, all states of awareness come. You are aware of being aware. The second letter, Heth, called an I, is your imagination, your ability to perceive. You imagine or perceive something which seems to be other than self. As though you were lost in a reverie and contemplated mental states in a detached manner, making the thinker and his thoughts separate entities. The third letter, thou, is your ability to feel you are that which you desire to be. As you feel you are it, you become aware of being it. To walk as though you were what you want to be is to take your desire out of the imaginary world and put the vow on it, or put the nail upon it. You have completed the dream of creation. I am aware of something. Then I become aware of actually being that of which I am aware. I want to read this third letter again because it's so vital that you have the aspect of being the director. You have the aspect of the I amness, your awareness. You are aware, or you are defining yourself as something, so you are aware of being aware. That's the first letter. The second letter is your imagination, your ability to conceive and to perceive, your imagination. You imagine or you perceive something, and then the third letter is your ability to feel that you are that which you desire to be. As you feel you are it, you become aware of being it. To walk as if you were what you want to be is to take your desire out of the imaginary world and put the nail upon it, put the nail in it to join it together. You then, by that, have completed the drama of creation. You are aware of something. I am aware of something. Then I become aware of actually being that of which I am aware. And then the fourth letter, last letter, is in the name of God, is another Hey, another I, meaning the visible, objective world which constantly bears witness of that which I am conscious of being. You do nothing about the objective world. It always molds itself in harmony with that which you are conscious of being. And so what you see in your imagination, what you see in your mind's eye, what you see as you perceive it in the second letter of the name, YHWH is the way that we would have it. These are the words he is spelling out. The way that Yahweh is spelled, YHWH. It is your I amness, the Yod. And then the H is the I, the imagination. Then the W, the vowel, is the nail that holds it together. And then the next H, YHWH, is what he's referencing here. The fourth letter is another I. It means the visible, objective world. So what you see with the first I, what you see via the eye of your I amness, what you see via the eye of your consciousness, you then feel that, become aware of your actually being that which you are aware. You begin to feel that, to sense that, to be that, and you are as if it already is. It's a level really of conviction, and that is what he's referencing here, because it is possible for an individual to say something to the effect of, I tried it and it didn't work. But this is not something that you try and it will not work. This is actually something that when you do it, when you commit to doing it, it will work for you, I know, because of the aspect that it has worked for me. And so whichever way that an individual wants to approach this, whether they want to do it by virtue of convicting themselves by virtue of affirmative prayer and speaking the I amness from affirmative prayer, by virtue of meditation, whatever it may be that you're doing, you're stepping into this place and you are perceiving that your prayer is already answered. It's already done. That you know that that text that says, before you call, I will answer, that text is absolutely true. That you are familiar with the texts that speak of this aspect of saying something already done. I believe that verse is the Gospel of Mark, 11th chapter, verses 22 through 24, where you have this particular saying as well in regard to this. So Neville is approaching this, and he's calling the place that you arrive at by virtue of these processes. He's calling that place your level of consciousness. And so you're told this in the name by which all things are made. And without it, there's nothing made that is made. The name is simply what you have now as you are here. You're conscious of being, aren't you? Certainly you are. You're also conscious of something that is other than yourself, whether it's the room, the car, the furniture, the people. You're conscious of yourself, but then you're also conscious of something else. In my case, I've got a table here, and so it appears that the table and myself, two different entities. You may become selective now. He says, maybe you do not want to be other than what you are, or to own what you see. But you have the capacity to feel what it would be like were you now other than what you are. As you assume that you are that which you want to be, you have completed the name of God. The transliteration that I gave was YHWH. In the Hebrew, there were no vowels, and so he has the Yod, the Hath, the Wow, and the Hath that is there. So he says you have completed the name of God, or the Yod, the Hath, the Wow, and the Hath. The final result, the objectification of your assumption, is not your concern, so don't be concerned about how. Just know that it already is. It will come into view automatically as you assume the consciousness of being. In other words, you'll be led step by step. You'll be led. You'll be guided. You will hear a voice that says, this is the way, walk you in it. And so you will be led. Or that text says, take no thought. You will be led, and that's what he's bringing forth here. And what we're doing is giving you, again, a tool. This is a very powerful tool that will work for you. Now, let us turn, Neville says, now let us turn to the Son's name, for he gives the Son dominion over the world. You are that Son. You are God's child. You are the great Joshua or Jesus of the Bible. You know the name Joshua or Jehoshua is the angelicalized as Jesus. Angelicized. eyes as Jesus. The Son's name is also like the Father's. The first three letters of the Father's name are the first three letters of the Son's name, Yod, He, Thou. Then you add a Shin and an Ayin, making the Son's name read Jod, He, Thou, Shin, Ayin. You have heard that the first three are Yod, He, Thou. Yod means that you are aware. He means that you are aware of something. And Thou means that you have become aware of being that of which you are aware. You have dominion because you have the ability to conceive and to become that which you conceive. That is a power of creation. It was Einstein that said that imagination was more important than knowledge. Imagination was more important than knowledge. This is the way that Neville Goddard is saying the same thing, that you can imagine that you already are what it is that you desire to be. You can step in that place and act as if, or if you want to call it pretend, or play the role, whatever it may be, but you imagine that you already are that which you desire to be. But why is a Shin put in the name of the Son? Because of the infinite mercy of our Father. Mind you, the Father and the Son are one. Jesus said, I and my Father are one. But when the Father becomes conscious of being man, he puts within the condition called man that he did not give unto himself. He puts a Shin for this purpose. A Shin is symbolized as a tooth. A tooth is that which consumes, that which devours. I must have within me the power to consume that which I now dislike. I, in my ignorance, he says, brought to birth certain things I now dislike and would like to leave behind. You want to be different from the way that you are. You want to have different. You want to be different. You want to do different. So you have the power to leave this behind. That's through the Son. Were there not within me the flames that would consume it, I would be condemned forever to live in the world of all my mistakes. But there is a Shin, or a flame, within the name of the Son, which allows that Son to become detached from states he formerly expressed within the world. Man is incapable of seeing other than the contents of his own consciousness. If I now become detached in consciousness from this room by turning my attention away from it, then I am no longer conscious of it. There is something in me that devours it within me. I can only live within my objective world if I keep it alive in my consciousness. It is the Shin, or the tooth, in the Son's name that gives him absolute dominion. Why could it not have been in the Father's name? For the simple reason, nothing can cease to be in the Father. Even the unlovely things cannot cease to be. If I once give it in expression, forever and ever it remains locked within the dimensionally greater self, which is the Father. But I would not like to keep alive within my world all of my mistakes. So I, in my infinite mercy, gave to myself, when I became man, the power to become detached from these things that I, in my ignorance, brought to birth in my world. These are the two names which give you dominion: Jehovah, Jesus. You have dominion if, as you walk the earth, you know that your consciousness is God, the one and only reality. You become aware of something you would like to express or to possess. You have the ability to feel that you are and possess that which but a moment before was only imaginary. You have the ability to feel that you are already, and that you can feel that you possess that which but a moment before was imaginary. The final result, the embodying of your assumption, is completely outside of the offices of the three-dimensional mind. It comes to birth in a way that no person knows. If these two names are clear in your mind's eye, you will see that they are your eternal names. As you are here, you are Yod He Thou He, and you are Yod He Thou Shin Ayin. The stories of the Bible concern themselves exclusively with the power of imagination. They are really dramatizations of the technique of prayer, for prayer is the secret of changing the future. The Bible reveals the key by which man enters a dimensionally larger world for the purpose of changing the conditions of the lesser world in which he lives. A prayer granted implies that something is done in consequence of the prayer, which otherwise would not have been done. Therefore, man is the spring of action. Woman is the spring of action. You are the spring of action. You are the directing mind, the one who grants the prayer. The stories of the Bible contain a powerful challenge to the thinking capacity of a person. The underlying truth that they are psychological dramas and not historical facts demands reiteration, inasmuch as it is the only justification for the stories. With a little imagination, we may easily trace the psychological sense in all the stories of the Bible. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26-27. Here in the first chapter of the Bible, the ancient teachers lay the foundation that God and man are one, and that man has dominion over all the earth. If God and man are one, then God can never be so far off as even to be near, for nearness implies separation. The question arises, what is God? God is man's consciousness, his awareness, his I amness. The drama of life is a psychological one in which we bring circumstances to pass by our attitudes rather than by our acts. The cornerstone on which all things are based is man's concept of himself. He acts as he does and has the experiences that he does because his concept of himself is what it is, and for no other reason. Had he a different concept of himself, he would act differently and have different experiences. Man, or human being, by assuming the feeling of his wish fulfilled, alters his future in harmony with his assumption. For assumptions, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. This is a powerful statement that in my reading of Neville actually comes forth over and over and over again. And so let me just repeat it again. A person, you, me, a human being, by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, alters your future in harmony with your assumption. For assumptions, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. It says that when you pray, believe that you have already received. And so you are assuming, you are having faith, you are believing that it is already done. And if you stay with that assumption, it will harden into fact. The assumption will harden into fact. And so as you get into that space and that place is what he's talking about. Continuing with Neville, he says the undisciplined mind finds it difficult to assume a state which is denied by the senses. But the ancient teachers discovered that sleep, or a state akin to sleep, aided man in his assumptions. Therefore, they dramatized the first creative act of man as one in which man was in a profound, deep sleep. This not only sets the pattern for all future creative acts, but shows us that man has but one substance that is truly his to use in creating his world, and that is himself. And whether that sleep is called a level of profound meditation, think no thought, enter into your closet, be still and know that I am God, it is still the same thing. It is still this same thing, where you arrive at the point where you have a level and a trust in God and in what God has said in His Word, that you arrive at the point, and not just simply His Word that is written, but His Word that is alive in you. And so that's what's being talked about. It is vital as I read this. What comes to mind again is that there are so many words that are used by different individuals that really say the same thing. And sometimes it is that individuals will get confused because they have in mind that two people, though talking about the same thing, are saying something different. But what is talked about here is what you will hear really all around anytime there is spiritual transformation that is going on, or the renewal of the mind that is going on in an individual. Anytime that takes place, and any person can do it, no matter who that individual is. It mentions that a person really is to be at rest in order to be good at this, to be effective at this. Or it is a statement like, be still and know that I am God, or thou will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. All of these kinds of things. And when I'm using these words, please know again that Neville in his writing, and myself even in my talking, that when I use a male pronoun, a masculine pronoun, then it still has application to the female. I will develop in regard to my ability to speak either neutrally or to go back and forth between the masculine and the feminine pronouns and this kind of thing. But deeper than that, just like we were talking about, there are things deeper than just simply what you read when you get into the Bible, as far as the surface level story. Deeper than that, I want you to get the meaning of what is being talked about here. Just really get the meaning of what is being talked about here. And if you would like a copy of this particular item, I can send you a PDF form of this, and you can read it and review it yourself. I'm reading it to you, but the truth of the matter is that the reason that I'm reading it to you is because it has been beneficial to me. And I want to take a break right now, and then I'm going to come back. As we do the break, I'm going to play a song because we're talking about this aspect of sensing and knowing the Spirit. So what I'm going to do is actually play two songs by Ricky Byers Beckwith. One is called I Release, and that is letting go of that which that has occupied your mind up to this particular point in time. And then the second one is I Feel the Spirit. And so this aspect, again, is what we're talking about, is arriving at a point of rest. And so we're going to take a break at this point and let you listen to a couple songs.
There was a time in my life I thought I'd have to do it all for myself, and I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient, and I didn't know the love of God was in him. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you got to let it go. Let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. My arms open wide.
To release and let go, to feel the Spirit. Earlier, when we started out doing this item with Neville, we basically mentioned that you must know exactly what it is that you desire. It must be something that you are passionate about. It must really be a part of you. It must be you. For you to actually push through and move to the point where you are training yourself to sense, to feel the movement of the Spirit, to sense, to feel the movement of the presence, and to know that, as the text says in the sacred book, the Bible, there's this text of the book of Mark, the 11th chapter, and verse 24, you can read verses 22 through 24, but verse 24 says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe," that's what we're talking about here, "that you have received it, and it will be yours." And Neville would say, assume it, and it will be yours. It will harden into fact. So you must actually train yourself to feel the presence, to feel the Spirit. And as we move forward in regard to what we're doing, I'm going to actually bring this to a close for today, and we're going to come back and do perhaps the same thing. I've heard of individuals who actually arrived at the point where they listened to a CD or a tape, cassette tape in this day, a number of times, sometimes 30, 40, 100 times, in order to actually get what they needed to get, because they recognized that in that particular tape there was something that was beneficial. And this is the way that you actually would need to bring about the change in your life. The power has been given to you. God has given to you dominion over your own life, dominion over your own thoughts. We've got an event that is actually scheduled now for September the 14th and 15th of this year, 2012, September the 14th and 15th, 2012. The event is called Revolve Evolve 2012, Revolve Evolve 2012, and it's going to take place in a place called Hunt Valley, Maryland, which is right outside of Baltimore, a little resort area right outside of Baltimore. And we're going to be talking about this aspect of being able to actually arrive at the point where you have this dominion over your life, and then catching God's vision for your life, or your reason for being, your purpose for being here, catching that, understanding that from God's perspective, from Spirit's perspective as to why you're here, and then actually having the tools and techniques, which you're sharing with you one now, actually giving you a technique and saying to you basically to go into your imagination, through a process of prayer, through a process of meditation. When I say prayer, I mean affirmative prayer. You are speaking as if it already is. So you're affirming with God that it already is, because you know that you've already overcome the world by faith. You know that you are already more than a conqueror. You understand that it's already done. And so you're arriving at that point where you're looking at life from that actual perspective. And so we're doing this event on September the 14th and 15th, 2012. It's called Revolve Evolve 2012, and we're talking about this aspect of your being a conscious creator of your life, so that you're not a victim. No matter what has happened to you in life, you're not a victim in life. You're actually a beneficial presence on this earth, and you're doing that which will bring forth the life that you desire, life which will be a benefit to someone else. And so it's on September the 14th, 2012, September the 15th, 2012. It's entitled Revolve Evolve 2012. It's taking place at the Marriott Baltimore Hunt Valley on Shawan Road, 245 Shawan Road in Hunt Valley, Maryland. And we want you to be looking for that. Tell your friends about it. Determine that you're going to move beyond whatever your past has been, that you're going to move into what your future is to be, something that you're passionate about. God bless you. We thank you for listening to Blog Talk Radio. Be blessed.